Call the meeting to the Tarpon Springs Board of Adjustment to order. We have a roll call, please.
1 second, Mr. Hasek. The recorder is not wanting to work. Chairman King. Absent. Mr. Cole.
Present.
Mr. Pavlou. Absent. Mr. Talarino.
Present.
Vice Chair, Mr. Hasek.
Here.
Mr. Darby.
Present.
This is a quasi-judicial meeting. Anybody that would like to speak tonight would have to be sworn in. So if you would, anybody that would like to speak tonight, please stand up and you'll be sworn in by the secretary.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony and evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's do the minutes for. We have two sets of minutes here that we have not been approved yet. January 16th. Everybody should have a copy of it. Anybody have any questions?
I have a procedural question. There are typos in the minutes in January. Just as it relates to salutations on page 2, to my knowledge, we don't have a Miss Hartzog on the board. We have a Mr. Since it's a matter of public record, I'm okay with voting to approve, but wanted to bring it to your attention.
Okay. Any other questions? Or in order to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have to abstain. As you know, that I was not.
Oh, you were not present at that meeting?
Yes, sir.
I motion we approve.
You have a motion in a second? I guess I was the only other one here.
Yes.
I'll second that motion. Shall we vote?
Mr. Talarino.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hasek.
Yes. The other one is February 27th. Looks like most of us were here. Do you have any questions on that minutes?
I just want to, for the record, I think it's fairly incomplete. There's a lot of board members' comments here, but there's areas where applicants have responded, but the applicant's response is not typed out. Again, procedural, but important as a matter of public record.
May I comment as well?
Sure.
And just below on page 3, it has a word there, Mr. Cole, disputed. That's augmented. I didn't dispute, I just was not in agreement. So if we can make
Which paragraph is that?
It's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth from the top.
Paragraph 5.
The disputed the assertion, is that the only reason?
Yes, sir. And a comment to the request made earlier by board member as it pertains to verbatim. It has been to my knowledge that we have never really ever had a verbatim set of minutes. Basically, it talks to the topic of discussions, and that's how it has been for the past 20 years that I've been privileged to serve on this board.
Yeah, it's not that it needs to be verbatim. On that same page where you pointed out the term disputed, there's a paragraph where Mr. Armstrong responded. I'm fine with the cliff notes of what his response was, but it's not written out there.
Mm-hmm.
Similar on the Allen application, there's some areas there where just the applicant responded but didn't give us what the response was. I mean, it's a matter of public record and it's on the video anybody can watch, so it's just,
Right.
just bringing it to your attention. I'm fine with continuing it to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so we, changed that, from Mr. Cole questioned to Mr. Cole, or from Mr. Cole disputed to Mr. Cole questioned. I'll change that in the,
Basically disagree.
okay, I'll change that in this, minutes. Anything else? Okay, we're open for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I so move that the minutes for the February 27th be approved with the amended corrections.
A second? I guess I'll second it. All in favor? Oh, let's have a vote.
Roll call.
Roll call.
I don't believe if you're acting as vice chair, you can make a motion.
I'm
He
sorry?
seconded the motion.
I seconded the motion.
Right, but I don't
Oh,
believe
you
you
can't
can do
make a
that.
motion.
We don't have anybody.
You can second the motion.
I don't believe if you're acting in that capacity.
If I can't second it,
He's
it's,
the vice chair, but he's acting in a higher capacity as than a board member.
Okay.
I'm not prepared to second the motion, but I'll move that we move, that we continue it.
Floor and discussion.
Right.
Make a motion to.
Oh, okay. I didn't know, I wasn't aware we had a second.
No, there wasn't a second.
Okay.
But there were a motion on the floor, and there was a second, but then there was a discussion on the second.
Okay.
According to the Robert rules, you follow the rules, and that's where the discussion is still on the floor.
Sure.
Then in the past, I have experienced on this board that the person who wished to second happens to be the vice or the chair, and especially in the chair position, can always move the gavel.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
But he has to pass the gavel.
Yeah, so it's.
okay. Well, then let's do that. I'll pass
Just
the
make
gavel
the
to
announcement you're
Mr.
passing.
King, or Mr. Cole,
This gentleman.
and I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Now let's have a roll call.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Talarino?
No.
Mr. Darby?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Hassett?
Yes. Okay, those minutes are approved. Okay, on to the, application number, let's see, 1315?
1320.
1315 is be first. Could you,
Yes,
that
thank you,
for us,
Mr.
Rodney?
Chairman. This application is 13-15. It's a variance application to reduce the required front yard setbacks from 25 feet to 21 feet. As you see in your backup, the property is located in the R100 zoning district. The property's address is 930 Bay Shore Drive. I'll briefly go over the highlights of the staff report. The applicant has submitted a statement of justification, which is identified as Exhibit A in your backup. TRC reviewed the application at the May 14th meeting and had no objections to the request. As far as review criteria for the variance that is requested, our analysis has determined that the need for the variance arises out of the physical conditions associated with the applicant's property. The applicant has a home that was built in 1955 and has ranch-style architectural features, and you see those listed there in the report. The home was built right at the 25-foot front setback line while leaving approximately 52 feet from the back of the home to the seawall cap. It was a common practice for ranch-style homes that were built in that time period. If the home had been placed further back at a more reasonable distance on the lot, the addition could have been accommodated without the need for a variance. Furthermore, the property is on septic, and it has a tank and a drain field. The second-story addition must have direct connections to the septic system. The applicant's plumber has advised that the connection should be made without any 90-degree joints to ensure that the system functions properly well into the future. By receiving this variance, the applicant can make that direct connection, and any concerns about future septic issues are alleviated with the approval of this variance. We've also determined that the requested variance is necessary to construct the building addition which includes living area and a 3-car garage. These improvements are recognized as a legitimate property right that are commonly enjoyed by most property owners in the area. We've also determined that the request will not confer any special privilege. The applicant's request is the minimum necessary to afford relief, and the special conditions have not been self-created. We've also determined that the granting of the request will allow for the construction of the addition, which will improve property values and maintain the character of the surrounding neighborhood and have an overall positive effect on the public interest, health, safety, and welfare. We've also determined that the applicant's request is based on the physical characteristics of the property and that it conforms to the general intent of the Land Development Code and the policies of the comprehensive plan. We have properly noticed the application. Did have a conversation with a gentleman in the audience earlier this afternoon about the application. And therefore, the applicant, in our estimation, has met all 10 of the review criteria, and the staff recommendation is to approve the applicant's request to reduce the required front yard setback from 25 feet to 21 feet to allow for the construction of the desired building addition. You have a location map, as well as an aerial photograph, a zoning map, a future land use map, as well as the exhibit that was prepared by the applicant. A photograph that was taken by the applicant showing his western neighbor. We also have a site plan that shows the footprint of the home, the location of the existing septic system and drain field, and the footprint of the addition with the setback distances identified. And you also have an elevation showing the look of the addition from 3 sides, and you also have a photograph of a current photograph of the existing property. Are there any questions?
Are any questions for of staff?
For the record, from 25 feet to 21.
21.
Actually, in essence, the applicant is asking for relief for 4 feet.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? The applicant come forward and make your case, please. You didn't. I don't remember you taking the oath. Would you please?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm this testimony and evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but? Okay, thank you.
Okay, would you step to the microphone and state your name and address, please?
Can I interrupt? Is the applicant required to make his case?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. George Andriotis, 1216 Castle Terrace, Tarpon Springs.
So give us a little bit about the project.
Yeah, we are doing an addition to the home, which will add a garage and add some living space. As Mr. Chapman mentioned, the house was built towards the front of the property as opposed towards the rear. Not that I'm opposing that. It's the waterfront property. That being said, any addition that we do will require a variance because we need to go forward a little bit. The garage was built again in 55, and it's a very, very small garage, which doesn't really accommodate vehicles 70 years later or 65 years later.
Do we have any questions? Any of the board members, committee members? Okay. The floor can now be open to any of those in favor of this application. Anybody opposed? Like to speak? Okay. Do we have any other questions?
No, sir.
Or I have one thing that I'm just a little curious about. It's not really the picture that shows the front of your house and the neighbor's house.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like your house is way back from the road compared to that house.
My house will be, even with the variance, probably it's between 10 and 11 feet further back still than his house is. I was sort of trying to give a perspective.
Okay.
Not that him getting it means I should, just
I was just
understanding-
curious about that. It looks like
Yeah.
your house is sitting way back off the road. I guess the other house must be sitting pretty close to the road then.
Yeah.
Okay. I have no other questions. I guess we can,
Entertain a motion.
call for a motion.
I motion that we approve.
You have a motion for approval. We have a second?
I second that we approve application 1315.
Okay. Let's, call for a vote, please.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Talarino?
Yes.
Mr. Darby?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hassick?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. The next, application is 1327, Townhomes of Brittany Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application is a variance from the required side and rear yard setbacks for property at the northwest corner of US Highway 19 and Brittany Park Boulevard. You see in the staff report, the code requirement for single-family attached dwellings are listed and highlighted in yellow. I'll give you some background on the project. Prior to the recession, we had several residential developments that are under various stages of construction. And several of those came to a halt once the recession really took hold. And this was one of those projects that was affected by the change in the economy. The City Commission approved the final development plan back in June of 2005. It was approved for 58 condominium units and 1,500 square feet of office space. The residential units were to be developed as condominiums, and for the record, what that means is the person that purchases the living unit purchases only that living unit. The ground beneath the unit, and all the units, remain under common ownership by the association. The project progressed through site work activities with water, sewer, and grading activities taking place. And at that time, as I stated earlier, developers' intent was to complete the project as a condominium that met all the setback requirements that are contained in the Land Development Code. Fortunately, the developer lost his financing during the recession, and all construction activities associated with the project came to an end. I believe the project went into foreclosure and sat dormant for a number of years. In late last year, Red Bank Investments LLC acquired the property and has been issued the permits to complete all the required site work and infrastructure. The current developer would like to change the form of ownership from a condominium to a townhome subdivision. And the biggest distinction is that with a townhome, not only would you own the residential unit, but you would also own a small lot that unit sits on. The regulations in the Land Development Code actually, even though this is a change of ownership, primarily there's different sets of setback criteria going from a condominium to a single-family attached situation or a townhome. In an effort to provide relief to the project, developer is requesting a blanket variance for the 58 lots in the subdivision that would allow the original development plan to remain intact while changing the form of ownership from condominiums to townhomes. The change in ownership does not pose any problems to the future residents or to those surrounding property owners. The applicant has submitted a statement of justification, and you have that in your backup. TRC did review the application at the April 11th meeting and concurred with the request. As far as standards for review, the need for the variance arises out of the fact that the infrastructure for the approved final development plan was partially constructed by the previous owner, including the majority of the drainage and utility systems. The granting of the request is necessary to preserve those development entitlements that were approved by the city in 2005. We've determined that the ability to alter this form of ownership from a condominium to a townhome subdivision is not a special privilege. And to kind of drill down on it a little bit more, the required side and rear yard setbacks for townhomes is 10 feet, and that's measured from the edge of the structure to that property line. By keeping the layout intact, the proposed side yard setbacks will vary from 3.27 feet to 8.43 feet. The only rear yard setback variance that is required technically is on Lot 10, where the 10-foot setback would be reduced to 9.15 feet. The minimum variance that will afford relief to the applicant is to reduce the side and rear setbacks as shown on the exhibit prepared by the applicant. We have determined that the conditions have not been self-created and that this request would not substantially diminish the property values or alter the character of the district or the surrounding area. We've also determined that the applicant's request conforms to the general intent of the Land Development Code and the policies of the comprehensive plan. We have publicly noticed the application, and we have not received any correspondence to date. The applicant, in our opinion, has met all 10 of the review criteria, and the recommendation is to approve the applicant's request to allow reduced side and rear yard setbacks as shown on the attached lot setback variance exhibit for the purpose of converting the form of ownership from a condominium to a townhome project. You have the normal series of maps in your backup showing the general area, an aerial map showing the property there at the northwest corner of Brittany Park Boulevard and US 19. You have a zoning map, a future land use map. You have an exhibit prepared with the applicant to justify the variance. Also provided to you a copy of the final development plan that was approved by the City Commission in 2005 showing the general layout of the buildings, and also you have an exhibit from the applicant that shows the, again, that same layout, but lot lines have been placed over those units to create a townhome situation. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
The change, how does that comply with or meet the comprehensive land development code? Because as I understand it, the original approval was for something entirely different, which met, I assume, the required setback.
Yes, the difference was in the form of ownership. As I explained earlier, the land development code allows for you to have a range of multifamily housing types. There's condominiums, there are single-family attached, which are townhomes. We also have single-family semi-attached, which are 2-unit townhomes. There's a whole host and range of residential types, and by switching the form of ownership from a condominium to a townhome is consistent with the land development code.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question, Rodney, is simply because the DOA is governed by the land development code.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, a question around it, just a background thing. Why, do you have any idea why there's a difference between the setbacks on a condo and a townhome?
Mr. Hazer, that's a good question, and I can tell you that the way our land development code is set up and the way it was written back in 1989, and I'll give you an example. As I told you before, there's a host of residential types, and for example, a multifamily covers condominiums as well as apartments. And I think when they drafted the code back then, they should have made a distinction between condominiums and apartments, because you could have, let's say, 2 or 3 story apartment buildings where they would have, totally intact situations where you could have 20-foot rear and 25-foot front setbacks and the like. But when you're talking about condominiums, we have several of them on the western edge of town where they're just single story. They're single-story condominiums, and you wouldn't know that, for instance, there's a differentiation in ownership other than, looking at a plat. Because by your eye, it would look like either a townhome, it could be a townhome, or it could be a condominium. But the code doesn't really differentiate those 2 types as well as it could, I guess, is our opinion.
Do you have any other questions? We have the applicant come forward, and your name and address, and tell us about.
Good evening. My name is Farhad Nick J. I'm the managing member. Can you hear me? How about now?
That's better.
Sorry. My name is Farhad Nikche. I'm the managing member of Red Bank Investment LLC that owns and develops this project. Frankly, when we bought it, we weren't aware that this was a land condominium. We thought it was sold to us as a townhome project. So I've never run across a situation that you could own your own building, but the association would own the land that your house is on. So we simply requesting this variance to make it more marketable because people will understand townhome fee simple easier than land condo. And I believe that this, by you granting this variance, hopefully it enhances the value of this property. And I respectfully request your approval based on staff recommendation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. The buildings would not change. They all have the same setbacks as they're approved. We're just changing the form of ownership.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this motion? Actually, you have to be sworn in. Anybody would like to speak, please stand up and be sworn in. Well, no, please stand up and be sworn in first. We can't. This is a.
You need to raise your right hands if you plan on speaking. It's you? Does this gentleman plan on speaking?
No.
Oh. Do you solemnly affirm this testimony and evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could you step to the microphone, please? I'll give you your name and address.
My name is Glenn Kennedy. I live at 9118 Brittany Park Boulevard, Tarpon Springs, Florida. And my question is, if these are changed to a townhome, will there still be an association associated with it, like for maintenance and guidance of their properties?
Yes, there will be. There are still common areas that will be under the ownership and the operations and the maintenance of their association.
But they will have to have an association.
That's correct.
Okay. That's because the reason the bulletin was on the front, it said something about free fee or something, fee free, and I didn't know if that included no association or not. But they will have an association which maintains property values.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. Anybody opposed to this in the audience would like to speak? Okay. Does anybody on the board have any questions or comments? Okay, I guess we can call for a vote for a motion.
I motion that we approve the application.
The application 1327. Okay. We have a motion on the floor.
I second the motion that we approve application 1327.
We have a second. Can we have a vote, please?
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Tallarino?
Yes.
Mr. Darby?
Yes.
Vice Chair Hasek?
Yes. Okay, the application 1327 has been approved. The next order of business will be any staff comments?
Just a quick bit of information. Earlier, Mr. Darby asked me about kind of amendments that we are maybe making to the Land Development Code to address some of these issues. You recall we had some discussion about amending the section that deals with sidewalk waivers. So that is in the process. We're working with the attorney on clarifying that. And we'll probably do the same thing with the setback standards for condominiums versus apartments. So we differentiate those multifamily uses and kind of stratify those a little better so that, you know, we're not running into the situation again.
Excuse me, Rodney, you're saying that there will no longer, after and if accepted, There will not be any waivers?
Not necessarily. That's the part where we're trying to work through, because the thought is, and most local governments do this, they have an administrative process where if you meet certain hardship criteria, you are administratively granted the waiver, but you pay a sidewalk impact fee, if you will.
Yeah.
So even though you're getting a waiver to put it in, you still pay into a fund that the city will use to expand the sidewalk network in the future.
I thought that's something we already had.
And that's something that we've talked about. You probably recall that for quite a long time. So we're finally trying to get that nailed down. And lastly, Jim Yakavone, the city attorney, has submitted his retirement notification, I guess you could say. He will be retiring effective August. So just to make you aware, that's his plans for the future. He has indicated that he would like the city to consider hiring one of his partners to take his place. So you may see one of his partners here in the upcoming board meeting.
Do you still have this retired partner?
No, I think he's fully retired. So probably for the next couple meetings or so, you may see Jim here with another attorney.
Okay.
Rodney, Mr. Yakavone is part of our law firm that's on retainer.
Yes.
So we have to utilize somebody from his firm.
Not necessarily. A couple years ago, I believe it was, that when the city was really tightening its belt, there was some evaluation of attorney services, and so a lot of their retainer fee, for example, was adjusted. The amount of responsibilities they had here at City Hall was adjusted down, and so I believe it's the City Commission's purview to go in whatever direction they feel necessary.
So the commissioners decide which.
Exactly.
Who makes the decision whether or not Mr. Yakavone or council will be present for these meetings? I noticed he was here for the last meeting. He's not here at this meeting.
The decision was made that the only meetings, he used to attend all appointed board meetings, but as I said earlier, in belt tightening that we went through a couple of years ago, his responsibilities were cut back to only cover city commission meetings and the planning and zoning board. So the HPB, the Board of Adjustment, and any other appointed board, he is almost on an on-call type situation, to where there's a separate amount of money that we pay him to come to these other meetings. But if you feel that there's something, it can't be every meeting, but if there's something in particular that you would need further clarification on, you can always pick up the phone and call him or send him an email, or if you feel his presence is necessary, then you can request he attend a meeting as well. Just send me that correspondence, the email or so, and then I'll forward it on to him.
Yeah, it would have been nice. I had some procedural questions for him that would have been nice to hear from council on.
Okay, we have any other board comments?
I just have a concern about, just in my tenure here as an alternate member and now as a permanent member of the board, I just have a concern with the procedures, so I'd like to get some clarification. The chief, for the record, my chief concern is that, this is a quasi-judicial board, meaning that the evidence is presented to us, in my understanding. And Ronnie, feel free to jump in. I understand you're not counsel. We don't have our city council member here, or attorney here. But as a quasi-judicial board, we're supposed to listen to the evidence as presented. It's my understanding that some members are going out and investigating, and I was not aware that we were allowed to go out and do ex parte investigations of sites. And
yeah, that's correct, and I'm glad you brought that up, because not necessarily for this board, but for the because of some things we wanted to get done with the planning and zoning board, the attorney has developed a pretty extensive handout on board procedures across the spectrum, and also a presentation. goes along with that. And our thoughts are that information, that documentation is good for not only the Planning and Zoning Board, but for all the boards, including the Board of Adjustment. And kind of what we're discussing internally now is, do we have Jim give 4 or 5 presentations to the commission and all different boards, or is it more efficient to have one presentation given at a commission meeting with all the boards in attendance? And I think Jim is kind of in favor of the latter, but that would help clarify and crystallize some of the issues that you're bringing up so that we all understand our roles, and including the commission, and so everybody is kind of hearing the same message at the same time, so it kind of levels the playing field, if you will. If we can pull that off and get that in the works, we'll give it plenty of lead time to be able to clear your calendar, but that's something that also that we're working on to try and get to the boards so that everybody understands what our charges are.
As I remember, several years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the attorney gave the board a quick rundown one evening after the meeting. That's been quite a while, and I think Mr. Cole and I are the only 2 that are left on the board that were present at that time. So it's probably a good idea to give us a little lesson.
Yeah. Mr. Vice Chair, how long have you been on the Board of Adjustments?
I don't really know. Probably.
You've been on, I would say, because I've been here 10 years, so I think you've probably been on the board probably 8 or 9.
I was an alternate for probably 5 years. That though.
Mr. Cole, how long have you been on the board?
I have been off and on for the past 20, possibly. Off and on. You understand that there's a time limit set forth.
Oh, there is?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And I can serve. I think one can serve as chairman for X number of years, vice chairman for X number of years, and then as a regular board member. But the alternates can remain in the alternate position until such time as the board of commissioners or we, the board, go ahead in the absence of a board member, a regular board member, move them up. But let me ask this question. May I ask the staff a question? I remember when I first came onto this board, there was a big black book, Plan Development Code book, that each board member were provided at that time. And any time that I received the package that I had some need for clarification, I would go to that booklet. If I had a need for further clarification, I would come to staff. And usually that's how the board members were able to come forward and, I think, do a good due diligent job for the board, for the city of Tarpon Springs. Do we still, as a city, do we still provide that?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, my door is always open, and I'm always free to meet with any member to discuss any situation that you feel you need some clarification on.
Right. Okay.
Can I also add that you can download it?
Yes, Mr. Darby's right. It can be downloaded from the Municipal Code Corporation's website.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
All right.
Rodney, at the last meeting, I brought up a concern about, we just voted on and approved our minutes for the January 16th meeting in which we began hearing application 12-62. In that now approved meeting minutes and on the obviously matter of record, we began hearing application 12-62. It was continued, meaning the hearing was put on hold and continued in the February 27th minutes and during our meeting, and it shows up here. I brought a question to our attorney's attention that we had a member of the board who was not a member of the board who was voting on that application. From a procedural standpoint, it seems to me like that member should have recused himself from that vote. And I don't have an answer on that yet.
The attorney, we talked about it 2 days ago.
Okay.
And he still stands firm that, Mr. Darby had every right to vote, because there was no testimony at all taken on that item, at the January meeting. And so, attorney is very comfortable, with the adjudication of that application.
Right, the only discussion during that meeting at all was whether or not we could,
Right.
I guess continue, I'm not sure what the word is, but pass it on to the next meeting, but there was no discussion of any of the details of that request whatsoever at that meeting, so that's why I agree with the way we did it.
But again, these kind of issues, I mean, if you want further clarification, you can contact Jim Yakavone directly, and he will feel free to, he'll be gladly, answer and kind of walk you through his analysis of those situations.
When's the next, city commissioner meeting?
I believe it's May 6th or 7th. It's that first Tuesday of May.
Okay, I guess if there's any other comments, then we're open for adjournment.
I'd like to move a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn,
You gotta hit the gavel.
so we are adjourned.
Don't be so